Learn to be super successful. Subscribe to my channel, Meathead. Welch, arguably, in my judgment, the greatest CEO in the last 75 years, the former CEO of GE. He had a rank and yank policy. Every other year, they would rank your fellow employees would rank you 1 to 1,000 or however many employees you had in the deal. And then Jack would fire the bottom 20% every third year. The truth of the matter is, or legend has it, what he did is he fired the bottom 40%. Now, fire, not replace. There's a big difference between sacking, firing, without replacement. They went from almost 400,000 employees at GE to about 150,000 employees, and the market value or the enterprise value of General Electric went from like 60 billion to 400 billion with 250,000 less employees. Of course, he was not a friend of the unions, and we'll talk about unions off camera. I'll show you how to deal with unions, but he is, one of the great CEOs, and but he's tough as fucking nails. They used to call him Neutron Jack. A neutron bomb kills all the human beings but leaves the buildings. They used to call him Neutron Jack for all the people he sacked. And I have a reputation I've sacked. I'm not proud of all the people I've fired. But it's not the people you fire that kill your business. It's the people you don't fire that kill your business. And I'll explain to you how no matter where you are, no matter how strict the labor laws are in the Philippines, Kuala Lumpur, India, there's ways of getting around, not in an illegal way. There's ways of getting around where you want to sack somebody, you can sack them. But it's how you hire them. It's how you hire them that counts. And we'll talk about that a little later. But what are some of the takeaways of my Vietnamese gangbanger? Other than he looks terrific. Other than that, and the pictures he has, can you imagine when they come in there, KPMG, and they see Hitler, Mussolini? When my picture, I pale in complexion compared to those guys. Yes, there was a question.
No.
Oh, in the back, yes, sir.
Yeah, one of the things I really liked about it was that he was selling his vision, 300 million. It was very clear and whatnot to his dream team. So
he sounds passionate. Now, some of the kids that couldn't give away sex in a lumber camp, couldn't give away a blowjob, let alone sell one, have harder time. But his sales skills were pretty mediocre when he started. And it all gets back to your verbal skills. You only have 2 times to make a first impression. 1, how you look. 2, when you open your mouth. That's it. You can't go back and change that. It's how you look. And you'll look the part, much more look the part. But now he looks the part and he sounds the part. And he mentioned rejection. And he also said, without me prompting, to listen to my words like the word of God. And almost every one of the successful kids will say the same thing. And I don't need smoke up my ass, and I don't need validation. But they all say the same thing. It's not like one of them says it and they all say the same thing. You follow the fucking thing, the model, and it works. And so if the model doesn't work, it's you, not the model. What else about our young drive-by shooter in the back? Yes, sir.
He had no prior domain expertise. He was a construction worker, installed doors and windows, and here he is doing healthcare roll-ups.
Yes. Healthcare, and he decided healthcare telco, which now telco is morphed into internet, that kind of thing. But and I'm not dissuading you from telco. There's some big fucking fortunes the kids have made in telco. But it's a different kind, and I want you to get across the goal line for your first deal as soon as humanly possible. Because the sooner you do a deal and you have confidence in yourself, you say, well, okay, I did my first healthcare deal. I'll sell that off, and let's go do what I want to do. But now you know that the system works for you. Henry Ford used to say, I don't want to talk about deals we're going to do or cars we're going to make. I want to talk about the cars we made. And I can't begin to tell you the metamorphosis that the kids have gone through from, not just the young ones, because, I mean, many of the kids that are a lot older than the teenagers and the guys in their early 20s have no sales experience. We're going to hear a German. When do we hear Andreas? Tomorrow? Well, anyway, we're going to hear a German buy the book, a right way, a wrong way, and the German way. But he's done it now, and he thinks, the question you ask is, why didn't I do this 15 years ago? I was here 15 years ago. Some of the older guys, why didn't I do this 25 years ago? I was here 25 years ago. Far beyond that, I wasn't. But it's not too late, though. Remember, 95% of Warren Buffett's money, if I remember correctly, was made since he's 55, if I remember correctly. And I know I remember correctly. And for the young kids, you can do this 4, 5, 6 times in the mid-20s. For the guys in the 50s can do it 2 or 3 times. 2 or 3 times. And Marcus Bauer, right now, who's breaking my record, 22 deals in a year. He went to the last hardcore. You could do, 20 deals a year, averaging 20 deals a year after is hard. I don't want to be disingenuous. But 5 or 10 deals a year is like taking a piss. Once you do your first deal and understand the pure simplicity. And we had an architect in here a few years ago, and he talked about it was like it was a Mona Lisa, this pure simplicity and the beauty of the. I don't go there. That's not me, but it is simple as shit. So I don't say the pure simplicity. I say it's simple as shit, and a fucking chimpanzee can do it. So where do you rank in the chimpanzee? You tell me. Based on your success heretofore, you're closer to the chimpanzee. Okay, and IQ's got nothing to do with it. Education's got nothing to do with it. What else about? Yes, sir.
Perception is reality. So he would line them up one after the other. You mentioned this in the book that when they come and see that another one is sitting there, they have the perception that.
Yeah, but some of them will get up and leave. I'm not going to be part of a beauty contest. Fuck you. We do have, and then in your report, I wish I could see tears on the reports. You can say you can feel like your tail's between your legs. You lined up 7 people and 4 got up and left. But see, that's okay. The other 3 you got by the balls. If you don't hook one of those motherfuckers, something's wrong with you. They
didn't get up for a reason.
Exactly. Thank you. That's exactly right.
And you don't want the other 4.
Yeah. Thank you. Now, 2 of the older guys said that, with the greatest respect. But you had to learn something. Getting gray or bald and wrinkled. I know I'm a classic example of this. I didn't have but maybe 25 or 30 gray hairs when I started coaching in 1993. Look at the pictures. Whipple and I got no gray hairs in that picture. The one that we saw before. Now, compared to now, I got no gray hairs. Of course, now I've lost my hair and it's turned more or less white. I like to think it's stylish gray myself, but that's not what my kids say. My kids don't believe that's me, the pictures of me when I'm young. They don't. These are photoshopped. Because they don't have any recollection, even though they're in their 30s. They don't have any recollection. You don't look at what your dad looks like when you're 5, 6, 8, 10 years old. Okay, what else about? Yes, sir.
Mindset. Convince me why I should.
Correct. And this is all on the templates. And it even says pause because you're waiting for a response. Pause doesn't mean you say pause. Now you laugh. We've had guys and gals send out the fucking stuff. Pause. Anchor chairman. That's not what you call them. And and then they misspell anchor on top of it. What else about? Yes, sir.
So he took control of meetings. He made sure that he was driving the meetings and the discussions so that it turned out that he was interviewing them, made sure that they understood he was interviewing
Correct.
them, and didn't leave them an opportunity to start.
Correct. No wiggle room. Correct. We're going to show you where to sit in the rooms. And it's quite remarkable how it works. You will, for the first time, Probably, maybe not, but probably for the first time you will see the bankers on the back foot, meaning off balance. Off balance. You will see bankers perspire. We've had a couple bankers piss themselves. I wish I had been there with a fucking camera, but anyway. We've had a Big Four accountant, senior partner, shit himself.
Good.
Yes.
Good.
Huh? Yes, Big Four. When he shit himself, it was Big Six. It's now Big Four, but anyway. So it's a number of years ago. And when you turn the tables on the seller, that you're looking at a lot of opportunities. Just as I told you about my cold calling the other day, assisted living down in England. And they realize, and one of the things that you do is you ask them, well, you know, it's obviously we're not going any place here now. Can you give me 3 other of your fellow colleagues in the assisted living space that is looking to sell? And even though they don't like you, they'll give it to you just to get you out of the room. They either sign or they want you out of the room. No in between. You're not making friends. You're not there to make friends. You're there to do business. And business to us is consummating, if it's in the healthcare space or whatever space it is, in the cybersecurity space, consummating the deal. All the rest is just talk. All the rest is just talk. And the kids are all pushing hard because, I mean, you can get a deal done with seller finance, not commercial banks. Commercial banks can't even think about getting a deal done if you brought it to them today. But seller finance, you can do a seller finance deal in 1 day. There has to be consideration, $1 or a pound or whatever the currency. But we've had some deals last year, not this year, thank God, that they didn't get consideration, so it wasn't a real deal. Something has to change, and we had to go back and fix those fucking things up, legitimately, but where there was consideration. As they say in this country, retrospectively. I didn't even know what that fucking word was, or there was a word like that. But it means to go back and fix the shit you may have got wrong the first time around. That's what it means. So I'm a retrospective son of a bitch now. And it's like he was surprised when I said you can get a deal done this year. I'm not just blowing smoke at my old ass, because I know you can. Let's say not this coming month, if today was the first day out of the seminar for me, I'd have, by Friday, I'd have a complete board, accountants and lawyers. The following Monday, I'd warm up banks. And then I'd spend the next 5 days finding 2 or 3 motivated sellers, knowing that one of them is going to drop out or 2 of them are going to drop out. And I do a deal for 100% seller finance. And that's before Christmas. Because without the banks, now in Germany it's different. Notary, bullshit, that takes time, they add time. But you can still get it done before the end of the year. The commercial banks, mostly because they're centralized now, centralized banking, as opposed to branch banking. There's still a few branch banking systems, but most of them are centralized. It's got to have 2 or 3 other layers of approval. And if it's a big deal, it might have to be syndicated, farmed out, and that all takes time, unfortunately. And we don't have enough time to do it before the end of the year. But I get this motivated seller to agree 100% seller finance. Consideration is $10 or 10 pounds or whatever, 1 pound, whatever it is. Then you can get a deal done. You can get a deal done. And which is contrary to everything you've been taught. But we have kids that are going to banks now today all over the world. And when they talk to the banker that's sitting on the other side of the table, whether he's come in to see you or you've gone in to see him, preferably he's come in to see you, and they talk about seller finance and they turn white. They don't know what you're talking about. And then when you talk about seller finance and seller's equity, See, the banking regulations around the world say a lot of, loan to values, 60, 70%, and the rest has got to be equity. Most normal commercial loan documents read that way. But nowhere on those documents does it say where the equity has to come from. You just presuppose it's you because you're a meathead. Equity can come from the seller. He leaves equity in the deal. Seller finance is really seller's equity. No place does it say your equity. No place. Not one commercial loan document that has ever been written says it's got to be the doc's equity. It's got to be his equity. It's got to be my equity.
What about SBA?
Huh? No, SBA depends. SBA, some banks accept seller's equity, some banks don't.
Because they're telling us 5 and 5.
5% and 5%. Well, you haven't called enough banks. There's 2,700 SBA banks in the United States. And most people call 3, 5.
60.
Oh, 60, that's a big number. Most don't. But there's 2,710 more. Yeah. There's another question? Yeah.
You said
I said a lot of things, kid, but go ahead.
in the book you said that it could take sometimes a few months to get the money from.
Well, no. I said in the book that if you go through commercial banking, it will always take you longer than you want, and it will always take you longer than the seller's 100% seller finance. And I'm not even sure if I mentioned seller finance in the book. Remember, that book was written 20 years ago. It's famous now, but I mean, 100% of what I say there is still applicable, but I may have not mentioned seller finance in the book. Yes, sir.
You talking about the first $100 million?
No, the first book I wrote was Build Your Own Guthrie. And then I wrote the first 100 million was a derivative of Build Your Own Guthrie. Then I said the second edition, which was an update of the first 100 million. And then more recently, as I mentioned this morning, we've done the verbal or oral or whatever you call it, audio, update, which I will hate my young assistant Kat forevermore because she would come and say, Dan, sir, you've got to tape some more. And reading my own shit back to me, I mean, it took forever. And I was like pulling teeth. No, I don't want to read any more chapters, Kat. Leave me alone, Kat. Don't hit me again, Kat. I'm an elderly man, don't hit me again. But we got it done finally. But no thanks to me, because I would have never finished it because it's a pain in the ass. It just did. And then I remember a author's update, and I've already read the fucking page 5 pages ago, but then I flash back, and fuck, I don't want to go back. No, Kat, don't make me do it, Kat. No, I don't want to go back. But I go back, but it's updated as of 2018, right? Beginning of 18. So that's updated with current cases, and but every time I hear authors update or whatever, I get chills up my back. But that's updated. And and when I first wrote it, I had the idea for the book 20 years ago. I mean, I only knew of 10 or 15% of the countries that you could do QLA in because I had only done it in 10 or 15% of those countries. But now, I mean, there's a plethora of countries. I mean, now we have to look for the countries we haven't done it in. There's only maybe 10 on the planet that we haven't done QLA in because it's applicable. It's certainly applicable. And with seller finance, it's applicable even in Nepal, which I just came from, which is a pretty, poverty-stricken country. But when people want to let loose of their assets because they have no succession plan, seller finance all of a sudden becomes a viable option. Anything else about Tran, excuse me.
What exactly is seller finance?
Seller finance is when he's taking the whole note for the entire transaction back The entire enterprise value he's taking back. The worst case scenario is if you default, and let's say you have a 5-year note to pay him over 5 years, and you default in the 3rd year, the worst case scenario is he gets the business back, and you've wasted 3 years. We just had a guy, 80-year-old guy, agree to 7-year seller finance. 80 fucking years old. Originally, he came back and said, no, I'm 80, I don't know. Originally, it was 10-year note. He said, well, I'll be 90. But then he came back, I could do 7 years. 80! He's not going to live to the end of the note. And I'll tell you how to handle that. A lot of these people don't live to the end of the note. Remember, they're sick. They're spitting up blood. They had a stroke. Their mouth is hanging down. They're not going to make it. Don't worry about it. Give him over to Doc. Let him worry about that shit. And he doesn't want to worry either, believe me. I mean, of anybody in the room, we had a guy, I told you about, a doctor here during the boxing. We had a guy get knocked out and go in supposedly convulsions. The doctor in the group went over, rolled him over, pulled his tongue, because he had swallowed his tongue. Pulled his tongue out of his mouth, patted him on the head, and went back and had a beer. That's it. That was the extent of his bedside manner, or the lack thereof. You know, docs aren't what they used to be. Except for this one, of course. Pull the tongue, because that's what you... don't you know you pull the... God almighty. You're looking at me like I'm talking Greek. You pull the tongue, you roll him on his head, pull the tongue out of his mouth, and, you know, nothing I can do. When he wakes up, give him some water. That's it. He went back in and, you know, a lot of the kids, well, you haven't eaten supper in the Pavilion pub, but that's your natural habitat for some of you, a pub. Alcohol consumption goes up 500% with seminar attendees the nights we're in the pub. 500%. You know, I was laughing last night at dinner. You sipping your one. Well, we'll see how much you sip that shit when you get in the pavilion. And there's nobody watching, or you think nobody's watching you. All of a sudden, alcohol consumption, you know, and the people that supposedly don't drink in there. What happens in there stays in there. It's like Vegas, right? And but it's you're having breakfast in there, you know. But it's when we set it up for the pub night, as Sally would say. Okay, anything else obvious from Mr. Tran?
He uses board to prepare himself.
Correct. And when we go through, you do the lesser interviews, not the big four by yourself, and you do the major interviews because you practice with your CFO. And the CFO will go. And if the CFO doesn't go, then you get a new CFO. For some of you, it's going to be the first time you've ever been in any position of power. And, you know, and some of you will relish it, and some of you will hate it. But it's part of the stepping stone process that, to the most casual observer, can see that it works, and that you have no competition. It's remarkable. I mean, I still wonder how come there's no fucking competition. When Sally and I, when you guys are gone, and we sit back and it's hard to believe. 26 and a half years with no competition. Normally you don't have any competition because the fucking thing doesn't work. This is just the antithesis of that. But now Sally has it because Sally's a major degree, she's a psychologist. She's a chartered accountant, she's a psychologist. She contends the longer we go, the less chance there'll ever be competition because it's self-fulfilling. I mean, there must be, well, I don't know why nobody does that. Well, the truth of the matter is to be credible, you have to have done transactions, a bunch of them, and then you have to have meatheads. The system hasn't changed any. When I was the only example of QLA working, it was harder to the kids because they said, well, I'm not Dan Peña. I don't have the the communication skills of Dan, blah, 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 blah. Right? Okay. But then when we start producing meatheads, that defense or that excuse diminished. And now we got fucking 13, 14, 15-year-olds. I don't know how you can make an excuse for that. What are they all Einstein gift? I don't know what bullshit you have to give yourself to be able to say, why does a 14-year-old able to do this and I can't?
That's exactly what they say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you, Dad, Mr. Peña, I know a lot of those guys that are on the stage. They don't do it because they're just pussies.
Yeah.
I'm in the green room with those guys.
Yeah.
I can look them in the eyes and say they're not going to do this. They're not going to sit across from KPMG and close them on a deferred fee. No way. They just can't do it.
No, I believe you. I beve you. But I didn't 20 years ago. Just as
20 years ago, I mean, it was Jay and Kennedy, and that was about it.
Yeah, there was a few more, but they, I didn't understand most of the guys on the stage, when they can't stand to look at you. They feel sorry for you.
Well, they're a half step away from them.
Thank you. That's exactly right.
I've said too much.
No, you said, no, I agree. Now, I said it sounds self-serving, here's $500, thanks for talking. But I mean, I'm telling you, when you get there, there's certain areas of the world we own, QLA owns, which I'm not going to say on YouTube, because that is their secret sauce. And, there are 5 or 6, arguably 7 areas on the planet we own. Lock, stock, and fucking barrel. I mean, QLA deal, great. As opposed to your previous history with financial institutions or whatever. And there's 2 or 3 areas we have a tremendous reputation for success because we've done a lot of deals in those areas, and that's why they know, is this a QLA, or they may say, is this a Castleman deal? I don't like that when they say that, but anyway. Castleman deal, is this a QLA, a Dan Peña deal? And the answer is yes. But knowing that Andrew Carnegie is the one that did it first, okay? The fact that I only lived 60 miles from where he did it, or no, not where he did, where he was born, is quite a coincidence. Because when I moved here 35 years ago, I sure as shit never thought I'd be doing this. Absolutely. Anything else about... Okay, YouTube.